Hello there, namaste. So today's video and the next video, the next two, today and the next, are probably among the most important videos in my opinion that I'm going to share, because they're focusing on meditation, on the practice of meditation. And I really do see meditation as the portal to the deepest kind of growth and change and healing. And I'm a therapist, so that says a lot, because I think it's an essential accompaniment to whatever healing forms we're engaged in. And of course, I believe that healing happens mind, body, heart, and spirit. So there are so many ways we can engage in the healing practice, but meditation sort of underlies all of them. Because it allows us to tap into a deeper place of knowing and safety that helps us really make the most of all these other healing practices. So welcome to our experience together today. Today I'm going to talk more about meditation, sort of why we do it and some of the different elements and ingredients of meditation practice and what to expect. And then in the next video, we'll actually do a meditation practice together. Many of you may have your own meditation practice. There is no one right way to meditate. So it's essential that you respect your own way and your own journey of going in. But I wanted to offer a particular path for people who are less familiar with it. And to share about it is passed down from my teacher, Anand Mehrotra in India, and from my meditation practice for many years. So what I'm going to talk about today and what we're going to experience together is a foundational meditation practice. It's different from a more intentional meditation, which might be focused on helping with sleep or reducing anxiety or increasing memory. And there are many amazing meditation apps and guided meditations and CDs and all sorts of tools we have available to us now, which are absolutely phenomenal. But what I want to talk about is just really a baseline. It's like a home base, foundational meditative practice that we can come back to every day. It develops our capacity to sit in silence, which again helps us make use of all the other forms of meditation and healing modalities that are out there. So the focus today again is on this foundational, silent meditation practice that is ours for the experiencing every single day. And it's not as a substitute for the more intentional meditation practices, and they are not a substitute for the foundational, silent meditation practice, which I believe is important for each of us to cultivate in the best way that we can, with ease and a lot of generosity and gentleness, which we'll talk a little bit more about. So my teacher always says, don't take his word for it, and I'm going to say the same. Don't take my word for it. Experiment with meditating. See what happens. See where it leads you and what you notice. This is not something that somebody tells us to do. It's something that if we're moved to do it, we try it and we see what happens. So have fun with it and experiment, and believe in your own experience, not in somebody else's. So I wanted to start by talking a little bit about why we meditate. And if we look online, the benefits of meditation, we'll find tens of thousands of articles. So we find physical benefits aiding with sleep and helping with illness and allergies and asthma and heart disease and blood pressure and cancer. It goes on, the physical benefits. And we'll also find cognitive or cerebral benefits. It increases focus and attention span and memory and clarity of thought. And we'll see a lot of psychological benefits. Meditation has been shown to be tremendously helpful for depression and anxiety and stress and addiction. And it increases compassion and self-love and kindness. So the benefits are endless. And of course, the Western science has a way of trying to prove things that have been really known from the inside out for thousands of years. So many indigenous traditions and Eastern traditions for thousands of years have cultivated a depth of understanding of the benefits of meditation and a lived experience of meditation benefits. But it's good to know that, we can find tremendous reasons on many levels to meditate. I wanted to just highlight 3 in my own terms, kind of in layperson's terms, and what I have found to be true about meditation. Because so often research for me, it's on a page, it doesn't go in. So, the first benefit that I have found with meditation is it literally creates a space to go in and to just observe the inner world and the inner experience with curiosity and with openness and with a growing amount of safety and with spaciousness and with gentleness. So the first benefit of meditation is simply to create a way to invite us into the inner world with peace and with curiosity. No matter what's happening in the inner world, that doesn't mean the inner world is peaceful by any stretch, but it invites us in. And it's so important for us to learn how to be with our inner experience as it is, because so often we're busy trying to avoid what's happening on the inside, or to stuff it down, or to seek distraction, or to fear it, or to judge it. And the more we learn to just be with the inner experience, the less it rules us, the less it controls us, the less it compromises our ability to be responsive in every moment that arises for us to show up, because we've got too much going on inside and we're struggling with it. So the first sort of gift or benefit that I wanted to talk about is just this invitation to go in and to learn to be with whatever's happening inside with less alarm and with less need to act in any particular way. So that's the first. The second is, I have found and witnessed over time that the more we go in and make room for this inner experience, the bigger the inner experience becomes. So where we start with sort of a small pond and we notice the pebbles in the pond and they're making big waves and we're watching them and we're kind of in it and trying to observe it at the same time, over time, as we learn to go, oh yeah, there I go again, there's the busyness, this inner space expands. And as the space expands, the waves become less powerful. It's sort of like if we're in a pond and there are pebbles, they cause big ripples. But if we're in a lake, the pebbles cause less ripples. And if we're in an ocean, the pebbles really, they hardly make a dent. So our experience increases, and the noise and the drama and the commotion of every day, it just loses its intensity a bit over time, because there's a wider pool of experience to hold and to carry our moment-to-moment experience. And that's really quite profound over time. And it doesn't mean that we don't have days that are more noisy and more anxious. Absolutely not. It just means that our breadth of experience increases, so we can hold what's happening in a bigger context. And we can be a little bit less carried away by the moment-to-moment waves. And as this expansion happens and we can pull from this deeper pool, interesting things start to occur. We may have access to insights. We may find an answer to a question that's been percolating for a long time. We kind of can tap into deeper sources of wisdom, deeper sources of wisdom within us, deeper sources of wisdom around us. We're just able to pay a little more attention. Our awareness expands, so we're more open to inner insights bubbling up, to outer kind of waves of wisdom that we come into contact with. So that's the second piece of meditation that kind of gifts us with this capacity to widen the inner world, to have a deeper pool, to absorb more of what's happening, and then to pull from deeper sources of wisdom. And that's not something that's forced. I think it's just something that naturally happens as we learn to hold our moment to moment experience in a bigger context. And we just have more access to what comes our way. And then the last piece I wanted to focus on, the last sort of benefit that rings so true for me, is something I've mentioned in the last couple of videos. It's freedom. You know, meditation really helps us access more freedom in our day-to-day life. Freedom from our patterns, freedom from our defaults, freedom from our reactivity, freedom from our fears. Now they still happen, we still have fears, we still have reactions, but over time we create a little more distance from those reactions and from those defaults, little by little, over time, so that we can be present, that we can be more choiceful in our response to what the moment is asking for, less instinctive and reactive, more kind of peacefully present. And again, I'm not saying in every second of every day, you know, meditation allows us to be 100% calm and graceful, but over time, little by little, there's this increased capacity to feel kind of a deeper sense of being present and showing up in the way that the situation is called for, with less noise and less clinging to our patterns and less fears, more openness, more spaciousness, more freedom to show up. So those are, I think, the benefits that I wanted to share that have been meaningful for me and that allow for all the levels that are happening, sort of the immediate level of just being with whatever's happening, and this sort of gradual expansion to kind of a larger self-experience, and then this sense of greater freedom, and this greater sense of agency in how we want to show up. So now let's talk a little bit about some of the ingredients of meditation on a daily basis. I think that the most important ingredient is really consistency. So, you know, to have a place that feels so comfortable to you and that feels sacred, and it's a very stable place, and it can be a corner of a couch, it can be a spot on the floor, it can be, you know, a spot in front of flowers that you love, it can be in front of an altar, but a sacred place that holds the energy for you, that it invites you into this connection with yourself. So a consistent place. Consistency in time is very helpful. It's not always possible. I'm one who does not always have as regular of a routine as I'd like. It can help to create a routine, to establish a routine, to have a time of the day that really calls you into that space with yourself. Many teachers recommend first thing in the morning. It is so helpful. It really is helpful to start in the morning before looking at email and texts. It's amazing how much more still the mind is. Teachers often recommend sunrise and sunset, and also before bed. But again, this is an invitation for each of us to find our way into what feels right. I would suggest at the beginning to start with a good 15 minutes, you know, work your way up to 20. We want to kind of get to a point where we can sit for a half an hour. Again, there's no pressure, there's no shoulds. It's just we're trying to get to a point where the mind, the mental vibrations can calm enough for us to really start to imbibe the benefits. But if you can start with a good 15 minutes, phenomenal. You know, 15, 20, it's amazing. And if it can be at a time of day that you find particularly important for you or settling, that's super. So consistency in terms of place, in terms of time, and then sort of consistency in establishing a routine around meditation, which can be as simple as sitting and taking a few breaths to prepare. And it can be more elaborate, maybe lighting a candle or lighting incense or turning off the lights or bringing the shades down halfway. But, it's helpful to engage the senses, um, and to engage the body in a routine that signals it's time to go in. And again, it can be 2 minutes, it can be 10 minutes, but it's all about this notion of consistency, a place, a time, a routine. Maybe I make tea and I place it next to me, so I smell, the tea, or again, the candle, or the lighting, comfortable clothes, a way that signals to your whole body, all your cells, we're going to create this time to go in. So those are some of the central ingredients around consistency to consider. And then elements of meditating. So I'm going to go kind of quickly through a few things to think about, and we're going to revisit them when we actually do a meditation together. So one has to do with where you're seated. And the key with meditation is to be comfortable and to have a straight spine, because all of our energy runs up and down the spine. And we're trying to create a really open pathway for the energy to rise up the spine through the crown of the head and to be sent down into the earth. So you want to have a seated position where your spine can be straight, and often that's best established when the hips are higher than the knees. And so there are many different options here. One position is just cross-legged position, Siddhasana, where you can pull the left heel into the perineum and the right foot comes on the outside, so you're in a cross-legged position. It's sort of the body makes a triangle. Here it's considered the most steady and stable position of the body. And then you want to elevate the hips so the pelvis can tilt forward a little bit and the spine can be straight. So often people sit on a pillow. And there are many pillow options. I'm going to show you at the end of this video some of the options. There's your favorite pillow. There's a blanket. There's what's called a zafu, which is a round meditation pillow. There are crescent-shaped pillows. There are big square pillows. They're called zabutons. I have all of them because I've gone on different retreats and I've just pulled every possible meditation kind of a seated option that I can possibly think of. And then there are meditation benches. I'm sitting on one right now because I'm having hip issues. And I find them profoundly comfortable, surprisingly comfortable, where you're kneeling and you're seated on a bench. I'll show you again after this in a video what that looks like. And then you could sit on a chair. And again, a chair, feet on the ground, spine lifted, just feeling sort of free and letting the weight of the body sink into the chair and making sure that the spine is lifted. So the seated position is the first element that we want to think about, and you may want to explore and experiment with before the next video where we do a meditation together. So the second element in meditation is a shawl, a prayer shawl or a meditation cover. Right here I have one that's wool. And my teacher talks about the importance of having a shawl or a cover that's made of wool or silk, because those are materials that are absorptive and they hold energy, and they protect us from the electromagnetic fields around us. So while we may sort of engage the senses in the ritual around the meditation, we want to withdraw from the senses when we go in. And a cover really helps us withdraw. It's called pratyahara, withdraw the senses. So we are less bombarded by outer stimuli, and we can be with what's happening on the inside. So a cover that's made of wool or silk is recommended because it really can help us be protected from a lot of the vibrations around us. White is a wonderful color for a shawl, or light colors, because they reflect all the colors. And again, we're trying to create a space where we can go in. So we want to reflect the colors. We want to protect us from the electromagnetic fields. So the second element, in addition to the seat, is a cover. And we can just kind of place it over our head, and I'll do that in the next video. Some people cover their whole face, others just cover the side, but it does help withdraw the senses. Some people use malas, beads. 108 beads is the typical mala. And if you're working with mantras, which we'll talk about, chants, you can, as you chant each mala, as you chant each mantra, every time you just move a bead down the line. So it's a particularly powerful way to sort of track chanting without having to think very much. And one round of malas is 108 chants, and that's often considered a round of a mantra. So malas are something you may want to consider over time too. None of these things are a must. They're just kind of elements and ingredients to think about over time as you delve into this, if you so choose. And then two other pieces, elements of meditation. One is called Khichari Mudra. Mudras are often hand positions that activate certain parts of the brain and certain energetic systems and meridians in the body. Khichari Mudra is in the mouth, and it's where we curl our tongue up to the roof of the mouth. And this has a way of calming the thoughts. It quiets the mind. It brings energy up towards the master glands of the body, the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, which are kind of responsible for higher states of consciousness. But it really, it's a calming way to help still the mind. Some people love it, some people don't. When I started, I didn't really love it so much, but I have found it to be profoundly helpful over time. Again, just rolling the tongue up to the roof of the mouth. Mouth is closed, but the tongue is rolled up. And then the last ingredient here is to, you can roll your eyes up to the third eye. So the eyes are closed, but the eyes are rolled up to the third eye. Again, this brings energy up to the master glands. It brings attention up to that area. It also activates the third eye, which is the seat of our intuition and the seat of our wisdom. And it also kind of helps focus the attention during meditation. So these are all things that are just, they're possible ways to help us come in and center. So again, the seat, a cover, malas, Khichari Mudra, tongue rolled up, eyes rolled up, all ways that help us really create a consistent way to go in, and that help us kind of with our capacity to observe what's happening on the inside. The mind is often not, this is going to lead me to my last point today, which is sort of what to expect when you start to meditate. The first thing to expect is to feel like you're doing it wrong, and it should be feeling differently. I can tell you 100% of the time that's generally what well, maybe 99.9% is what happens. Like, I'm not doing it right, I'm not getting the right effects, I'm not comfortable enough, I'm too distracted by all these different things I should be doing. So just expect that to happen. You won't feel like you're doing it right. And I can tell you right now, you are, because there's no one right way to do it. Anytime you're making space to go in is exactly what's needed. And anything that happens when you go in is exactly what's needed to happen. And if it's 5 minutes and that feels like agony, that's perfect, because that's 5 minutes where you sat and watched what was happening. And if it's 5 minutes and you fall asleep, then that's okay too. There is no one right way. It's all an invitation to learn how to go inside. And we all experiment with that in the ways that we can, and we have fun with that. So that's the number one thing to expect, is that you'll feel like it's funny and weird and you're not doing it right. The second thing to expect is you're going to have more noise, most likely, on the inside. And we often think that when we're meditating, we're getting noisier. Actually, what's happening is we're just quieting the outer distractions. So we notice what's happening on the inside more, and it feels noisier. It's actually always kind of that way, but we don't have the outer distractions to pull us out. So it's going to feel noisier. And again, the defaults, like we talked about in the last video, are going to be louder. The defaults are going to be louder. I'm not doing it right, or I'm irritated with myself, or I'm irritated with her. She didn't help me understand this well enough. Or the defaults of to-dos are going to be louder. There's so much I should be doing. Why am I wasting my time? So just to notice, those are my defaults. Those are my defaults today. Oh, that one's really loud. That's what you need to expect. It feels noisier and the defaults kick in. What you may notice, that's what you're going to notice during. What you may notice after meditating, even after just doing it for a couple of times, a handful of times, you're going to start to have some interesting insights during the day, or moments where you feel a little more able to observe something that's happening around you, or able to recognize a pattern within you in a different way than you have before. Sometimes an answer will pop up of a question that you've been pondering. It's very odd that it can even start happening subtly, but relatively soon. Just sort of these little insights or things that sort of shift your way of saying things. And I share that here not to create expectations, because it'll happen when it happens, but often these things start to happen and people don't connect it with the meditation. And I see this with clients often, where things start to shift, and it doesn't always feel positive. Sometimes it feels like, oh my God, I just recognize that's something I do all the time. Why do I do that? It doesn't have to be positive, but there are these observations and shifts in awareness that begin to happen that you haven't had in that same way before. And that's something to be aware of and to possibly, anticipate once you start meditating. And again, it doesn't mean it's positive. Ultimately, it's very positive, because we don't have room to maneuver if we're not aware of something. So the awareness is always phenomenally positive, but it doesn't always feel great. And that's perfectly fine. Why do I always act that way when I get in this environment? What's up with that? And then you get to explore a little more. You can talk about it. Journaling is so powerful. Therapy is powerful. Energy work, yoga, all sorts of ways to work with the observations that arise during meditation. So the very last thing I want to say is the thing you need most with meditation is humor. I laughed at myself, at myself often when I started. I couldn't get it right, and my tongue was hurting, and I had a headache, and it was funny, and my hair was itching my face. And you have to have humor. You have to have patience. You can have a partner, to compare notes with. It's just absolutely essential to hold it lightly. My teacher always says to us, don't take yourself so personally. I love that. I love that expression. Hold our experiences lightly. Give yourself so much credit. This went longer than I wanted. I'm trying to keep these recordings short, but it's so important to be held in the right space as you enter this experience of meditating, because it's really the portal to freedom. It's really the portal to higher states of consciousness. And we all need, I think, help and guidance, knowing that it's all okay. So I'm going to end there. I may add a picture or two of the various seat options that I mentioned. And if you ever have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to send me an email, my website, my phone number is on my website, or YouTube channel, comment, whatever would be helpful for you. Okay, thank you so much for your time, and namaste. Okay, so now we'll take a look at some meditation seating options. This is a crescent meditation pillow. It kind of looks like the shape of a moon, and it angles down so the hips are lifted. And this is a meditation pillow often called the Zafu, Z-A-F-U. And this is a zabuton, big, kind of a long rectangular pillow, very soft. You can place a circular pillow on top of it, And you can also fold the back of the pillow and use it as a seat for meditating. And this one I got on Gaiam.com, Gaiam.com. And this is a meditation bench. It was ordered on Amazon.com. It's called Meditation Designs. It's a bestseller. Literally, if you just look up meditation bench. And it rocks. So you see it kind of rocks. And it's lower in the front. And you place your knees on the bottom here and you sit on it. So those are your options. One more look. Happy meditating, and until next time.